Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast. The Liberals are on the edge of gaining more power in Parliament tonight. Winning just one of the three by-elections happening in Ontario and Quebec today would give the party enough seats to control the House of Commons with a razor-thin majority. Winning two would give them more control over House business, and that extra seat or additional floor crossers, as more are rumoured to be waiting in the wings, could put off the next election until 2029. Tonight's results come after Prime Minister Mark Carney welcomed a fifth opposition MP to his caucus last week, former Conservative MP Marilyn Gladu, and the Prime Minister addressed supporters at the Liberal convention in Montreal on Saturday.
The founding insight of our country is that unity does not require uniformity. This is neither a myth nor a miracle, but a series of choices made imperfectly across generations. Pragmatic decisions that have become a moral conviction. That our differences are a strength to be nurtured, not a risk to be managed.
Our National Affairs panel is here to help make sense of all of this. Rosemary Barton is the CBC's chief political correspondent and host of Rosemary Barton Live. Stephanie Levitz is a senior reporter in the Globe and Mail's Ottawa Bureau. And Ryan Tumulty is a parliamentary reporter for the Toronto Star. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rosie, what kind of political picture could people be waking up to tomorrow morning?
Well, I think one that is going to be different. I mean, it's an all but foregone conclusion that the Liberals will win those two Toronto by-elections. Those are Liberal strongholds won by huge margins in the last election, and typically that is the case. So I think it will be a majority, but what they're waking up to is a majority that has been pieced together, cobbled together in a way unlike ever before. It's not just the by-elections that will likely get the Liberals there. It's this extraordinary move to bring people into the Liberal tent. Now up to 5, and as you said in the intro, there are more. There really are. There is a list of people that they are speaking to, and there is some hope by Liberals that because Marilyn Gladu was the last one, and because her views previously were so different than what you would expect a Liberal to look like, that actually has made it in some way easier for some Conservatives to consider crossing as well. So I think it's less the majority piece, which of course it matters and will have an impact on how the Liberals govern. But it's more to me that this kind of bizarre, extraordinary coalition that this Prime Minister is building around him.
Steph, those views of Marilyn Gladu include supporting the trucker convoy, opposing vaccine mandates, questioning the severity of COVID in past. People like to talk in politics about a big tent. How big is this Liberal tent? What is the tent made of these days?
I'd look at it more like a canopy, Matt. I'm not sure there are sides on this tent anymore. And in that way, I think one of the things I heard consistently at the Liberal convention over the weekend is that from their perspective, this is how it used to be. That it's only been in the last, decade of leadership under Justin Trudeau where he laid down very clear markers for what, if you were going to be a Liberal, what you stood for. And, there was a time, don't forget, that Liberal candidates even had to sign an attestation, for example, about abortion and saying they will vote with the government, even if their personal views are different. Prior to that, there were a range of diversity of views in the Liberal caucus, and they had their own knockdown, drag-out fights internally, like as this country moved forward on legislation, like on same-sex marriage, or even prior to Trudeau about cannabis, medical assistance in dying. All of these things aren't foreign as pressure points for the Liberals. So some of them see this just as a return to the brokerage party of the past. And in reality, as one said to me on the weekend, there's a reason that they've been winning elections again and again and again, right? That they do what it takes to win. And if that means opening up the sides of the tent, blowing them, saying, the old tent wasn't working for us, we're going to move to this canopy model and bring more people underneath it, and that's going to get us power, then that's what we'll do.
More people could be coming into the canopy. You reported over the weekend that the Liberals are courting, as many as 8 MPs?
Yeah. Yeah, like as Rosie alluded to before, there are lists circulating, right? And if the sources that I'm speaking to look at it a variety of different ways. They have their marching orders, go talk to these people, see if you can get them over. The other thing, though, is, in the case of Marilyn Gladue, it's been explained to me numerous times from different people, she wasn't on anyone's list. This was a version of her, approaching someone in the Liberal caucus and saying, hey, man, can we go for coffee? And it took it from there. So what's so interesting about this moment in time is that the Liberals think they know people that they can bring over, but there are obviously other people in that caucus and probably in other parties too, not just the Conservatives, who are wondering if they're better suited to move to the government side too.
Ryan, you were also at the convention. What did you pick up? What were you hearing?
Well, I heard every possible variation of the tent metaphor that exists over the course of that weekend. I actually think we're done with tents. It's just poles and people wandering through them. But I heard a Liberal Party that is very confident, that is in a good pace politically, not just because of the majority, but because of their fundraising numbers and the strength of their polls right now. And I heard a government that's sort of ready to move into a new phase with this majority where they can move a lot of their things further and faster than they could have done previously.
Did you hear any anxiety from members of the party about who would be welcomed into that party?
Certainly, there was a little bit of that. But we have seen, certainly Mark Carney refers himself to it as a pragmatist all the time. And you heard that from a lot of members of the party. A little bit of reservation about Marilyn Gladue, a little bit of reservations about her past views, but a willingness to give her the benefit of the doubt. And I think when she came out and did that scrum and sort of distanced herself from all of her previous positions, and then, made the rounds at the convention and posed for selfies and got lots of high fives from Liberals, I think they were willing to welcome her into the fold. I don't think it's as rigid a party. I don't think it's ever been a very rigid party when it comes to membership. If you just think about the difference between Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau, this party can move when it has to. And I think that's what we were seeing.
Rosie, among those who could be welcomed into the fold if the by-election goes the Liberals' way in Scarborough Southwest in Toronto is the former deputy leader of the Ontario NDP, who's running as a Liberal candidate now. Yeah. People are asking this question, what does it mean to be a Liberal now? What is your sense as to how the party might answer that?
I think based on who, I talked to on my show and over the weekend, what it means to be a Liberal right now is you're a winner. and sometimes winning is the best common denominator beyond the values. When the Prime Minister was asked these questions last week, he tried to make it seem as though people with these different set of values, like Marilyn Gladue, like this other NDP former deputy leader who probably will win, that they're not shifting, that the party's not shifting their values, that the people coming to the Liberals are now having to shift their values to make sense of why they can now be part of this party. I think fundamentally, though, what the Liberals are trying to do right now, and I can understand why this would be utterly maddening for Conservatives, is they are trying to make it a party about unity, whether it be national unity, patriotism, a coalition that can take on Donald Trump and the crisis that we're in. And you heard that a little bit in that clip you played from the Prime Minister. That is I think, a really strong move that is very hard to fight against. However, the situation we're in will change. We are not going to be constantly, I don't think, dealing with Donald Trump. And so to me, what will be interesting is how the Liberals shapeshift again to respond to whatever moment we are in. But as it stands now, I think trying to fight this unity coalition, unity government is something that the opposition parties just haven't figured out yet.
Steph, what do you think? You were there at the convention. What do you think the party's pitch is, not to those MPs on the list, but to the country in some ways?
Trust us. We are a party that looks like you. And that was definitely a knock for the Justin Trudeau Liberals. Again, this idea that Justin Trudeau was building a party in his own image, that there was criticism of him as being a divisive leader. And the Liberals are, again, that's a great expression that Rosie uses, shape-shifting, trying to go and meet the people where they are, which is to say, we are done with the politics to a large degree. Are we done as a nation with some of the identity politics, some of that really captured the 10 years under the Trudeau Liberals, or as like a longtime Liberal strategist put it to me, Justin Trudeau's government was very people-centered, and there was a time for that. Like, a lot of focus on social policy, childcare, pharmacare, dental care, these big things to lift up people. Mr. Carney's government is a business government. You have to look at it more like an organized, like a CEO, like a corporation, and they just want to get things done. And Canadians are responding to that because I think they too just want to see things get done for a change, less talking, more doing.
Ryan, is the sense that a majority government will allow, to Steph's point, Mark Carney and a government under him to get things done?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it will also give them time. This government has most focused on long-term economic changes to this country. Yes, there have been tax rebates and things like that for the short term for the electoral needs. But most of what this government has been doing is about the long term, about new trade deals, about major projects, about, big new initiatives that take a long time to show results, even if they work out well. So he needed this time because, a year from now, I'm not sure that he'll be able to say that the government has accomplished much. You won't see that many shovels in the ground. But 3 years from now, you might see a lot of that if all goes according to his plan. So he needed this time to make real economic change if it's going to work at all.
Steph, what does this mean for Pierre Poilievre? Not just a majority government for the Liberals, but also a list that presumably includes MPs from his own party who are thinking of leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, after Marilyn Gladu went, the response among Conservatives was just total shock. And part of the reason for that was that, in their view, like, what was the grievance? They could look at the other floor crossers and sort of pinpoint, okay, why did you go? Why did you go? Why did you go? And Marilyn was harder for them to wrap their heads around. It's a difficult time for Pierre Poilievre. I'm not sure what you do to stop this, right? People say, are you going to change what? The reality is people don't want to be part of his caucus. And some of that is absolutely about him as a leader. And some of that, frankly, is about power and governance and a group of people like a Marilyn Gladu who have been in Parliament a long time and they're tired of being in the opposition. And all of the floor crossers have said that, right? They think they can do more in government. How does Mr. Poilievre change that short of winning a government, which there's now, if we're going to have a majority, there's going to be no election likely for a good long time. I don't know how he solves the problem. And for him, and certainly for the party and his base, he's been spending so much of their money lately. He's traveled the world. He's given interviews to Joe Rogan. They've launched a major advertising campaign. It's not moving the needle, and they're still losing MPs. And that is a challenge for any leader. And in particular him, when everything in that party right now is bound up in Mr. Poilievre, his image, his direction, and his messaging.
So, Rosie, what happens then? There are these stories of discontent. 40 MPs apparently worried about possibly losing their seats in the next election, wherever that were to happen. People's names on a list. And yet, if there's this discontent, there doesn't seem to be anybody openly opposing Pierre Poilievre. Where does this go, do you think?
Yeah, not yet is
not
what
yet.
I would say.
Okay.
There is a very, the Conservative MPs I talk to are very deflated. Like can't actually believe that they lost another one. Can't believe that there are more on a list. Some wonder, well, maybe the Liberals are just like playing with our heads. And you say to them, no, that's not what's happening here, right? There could be a move still to oust Mr. Poilievre, but I'll be honest, I haven't heard anyone say that they're about to do it, ready to do it. But I do think what happens tonight matters. So now you've lost an election, including your own riding, that you were supposed to win. You've lost 4 MPs, and now you've helped the Prime Minister get to a majority government. I'm with Steph. I don't know what he does now. I think losing more MPs and sitting there for the next 3.5 years, in some ways, time is also what Pierre Poilievre needs, right, to turn things around. I don't see where it's turning around. I guess the only hope would be that the government starts sinking itself, which happens to governments. But that to me seems like a very strange strategy to build your own success on, hope of the other guy's failure.
Ryan, how long does this go on, do you think, for Pierre Poilievre? There's that phrase, how do you go bankrupt slowly, then all at once?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he definitely has a real problem here, and it is not a good reflection on his leadership. Most of the MPs who have crossed have said they just, more than anything else, didn't like working for the guy, basically. They found him too controlling, and we've seen these reports that he was asking his shadow cabinet to justify themselves as he thinks about shuffling that. And I'm sure many of them were thinking, well, I won my election. What about you? So there is that discontent. Now, that said, this is a man who received 87% support from his own party in January. And I think it'll be very, very difficult, especially for a conservative party that listens to its grassroots, even when sometimes that's politically problematic. But when they really do listen to the grassroots, for caucus to suddenly oust Pierre Poilievre. I think if Pierre Poilievre is going to leave, it's probably going to be under his own initiative. He's going to decide that he can't get there, that he's not going to be prime minister, and that it's time to step away.
We just have a couple of minutes left. There's likely to be, many people believe, yourselves included, a majority government in Parliament. And so given that, we're also in a cost of living crisis right now. Gas is at this eye-watering level across the country. People know that groceries and everything else is going to become more expensive as well. Ryan, what do you think the priority for Mark Carney, the first priority will be if this majority comes together?
Yeah, I think it has to be that cost of living issue, because even though he doesn't have to face the electorate for 3 years, that electorate is going to get grumbly, and that's going to be a problem for his caucus. And the majority government comes with a new problem that Mark Carney hasn't had before, and that's potentially caucus discontent. Now, just one Liberal who decides they don't want to vote with the government, could really upend things for him. So all of a sudden, the Liberal caucus, who've just been going along to get along, might push back. I'm thinking of a Stephen Guilbeault who left cabinet. I'm thinking of Nate Erskine-Smith, who might be leaving. So there's a lot of risk here as well with this majority government, because it's not overwhelming. It's by the skin of his teeth.
Steph, you write in the paper this morning that the Liberals have shifted into a new gear. Just very briefly, what do you think the priority will be in that new gear?
They have to figure out a better way to link their long-term objectives, things like building homes, defense spending, natural resource development, and explain, for example, to someone in Hamilton why a pipe getting built to the coast of British Columbia is going to improve their life. And I think the first signals of how this government is going to address that are coming maybe as early by the end of this month. They're going to have a fiscal update. I think we can expect new programs and new policies to sort of connect those dots a little bit better.
Rosie, last word to you, just very briefly. The priority of this government will be what?
Yeah, I think Ryan's right. I think it has to be dealing with what Canadians need now. And if that looks like some sort of gas rebate in the economic update, those things can go a long way for families that are, planning their summer holidays and trying to figure out their lives. I think the challenge, though, for the Prime Minister is managing expectations, because with a majority government, the expectations also, I think, increase, because now there's no excuse for not getting something done. You have the ability to do it, so you really have to follow through. I'll steal a word from Steph's colleague, Campbell Clark, and he talked about the swagger over the weekend. And I think that's the other thing that Liberals have to be careful about. You can't have too much swagger, even if you've got a majority government. You've got to govern for everyone, and you've got to make sure that it could slip away at any time. We will be watching. Good to speak with you all, as ever. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thank you.
Rosemary Barton, CBC's chief political correspondent, host of Rosemary Barton Live, and she will be hosting CBC's special coverage of those by-elections beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Stephanie Levitz is a senior reporter in the Globe and Mail's Ottawa Bureau, and Ryan Tumulty, a political reporter with the Toronto Star. You've been listening to The Current Podcast. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.